What's up guys, my name is Ace, and Season 4 is here for Modern Warfare 2, and with this we saw a little bit of weapon balancing, mainly just focusing on shotguns. We saw the addition of a couple new attachments, a bunch of quality of life changes, and some key fixes. So we're going to be covering all of this in great detail, not just reading the patch notes out to you guys in today's video. And diving right in, let's start this off with the weapon balancing. And the big thing that was changed here is they adjusted how pellets use damage priority, and they mentioned that if more than 4 pellets hit a target, the highest damage among those pellets will be used. So it almost seems like they were using a bit of randomization with the pellet damage, within a range of course. And with this change, we should be seeing more consistency, assuming we're hitting at least 4 pellets. Now on top of this, for pretty much all of the shotguns, they had various body multipliers increased. And instead of reading through these patch notes, it doesn't really mean much. They don't give much detail here. I wanted to just show you the full shotgun range comparison with pre-patch versus post-patch for all of them. And with this, you might be noticing there aren't any really massive changes here. You can see like the Lockwood 300 can hit a little bit further out. Same thing with the Bryson 800. Another thing you might notice is the Bryson 890 now has a 2-shot kill potential out to its maximum hit potential, which is about 23 meters. However, that does require you to hit some pellets to the head. And probably the most notable out of all of these is the KV Broadside got much more consistency with its 2-shot kill potential. It now reaches out to about 14 meters on a fairly consistent basis. With headshots, you can technically stretch it beyond that, but this is more the consistent 2-shot kill potential. But overall, the main takeaway here with the shotguns is, while we don't see any massive changes anywhere, it's not like anything just immediately became way more powerful. Just across the board, shotguns should feel a little bit more consistent. You'll deal slightly more damage within each one of these ranges, and therefore you may require fewer pellets to hit in order to get a kill. So shotguns should feel slightly better after the update compared to before the update. Additionally, there was mention of an adjustment to the Dragon's Breath on the KV Broadside, and this was listed as a close range damage increase. And with this, when we look at pre-patch versus post-patch, our 2-shot kill potential is increased, but that's due to the change to the base KV Broadside, so that's not a surprise there. And you'll see an extremely small increase to our 1-hit kill potential. This is 3.7 meters rather than 3.5 meters pre-patch. But more importantly, within that 3.7 meters, if you get within that range with Dragon's Breath, you're now able to get an instant 1-hit kill the moment the gun goes off. Whereas pre-patch, the enemy wouldn't go down immediately. They would have to take a tick or two of that burn damage before they die. So while Dragon's Breath is now slightly better than it was pre-patch, I still don't think I would be recommending this. I'd rather stick to the standard KV Broadside overall if I'm going to be using it. But just know, Dragon's Breath is very slightly better now than it was pre-patch. Now, let's move on to the additional attachments that we got with this season. The first one is Akimbo on the FTAC Siege, which does require you to get 25 hipfire operator kills with the FTAC Siege in order to unlock this. I may do a more detailed breakdown down the road once I have time to get this taken care of. And then on top of that, the Kastov 74U got a new barrel added to it. This is the CSTV-17 barrel. And with this, you unlock it at level 9 with the Kastov 74U, and it should be unlocking for everybody that's already achieved level 9. At least at the time of recording this video, that doesn't appear to be the case. But I was still able to do the testing in a custom game with this, and we actually get an amazing range boost with this at roughly 28%. This is the only barrel that can increase our range now with the 74U, which is excellent. However, it does come with a fairly hefty aimed out sight time penalty at 315 milliseconds overall, so 90 milliseconds slower than the base. So for me and my playstyle with the 74U, I like using it as kind of like an assault rifle SMG hybrid. I don't really see myself using this barrel, but having said that, if you're looking for that extra range and you're willing to sacrifice aim down sight time, this may be a great choice for you. And that's going to cover it there for all of the weapon related changes that apply to multiplayer in this game. Nothing too major. Like I said, basically just shotguns are going to feel slightly more consistent now. That's the big thing. Now let's talk about some melee changes. And the first thing that I'm going to cover is the gun butt melee. So if you melee somebody with a gun in your hand, they've reduced the range on this from about 1.5 meters down to about 1.4 meters. So very, very minor change here. But much more importantly, and this wasn't mentioned in the patch notes, they've removed the lunge with the gun butt melee. Previously, you would essentially teleport toward the enemy character in order to hit them with your gun butt, whereas now you don't. You just stand in place, and you can still hit them at almost the same range. But for that follow-up hit, it's now going to be a bit more difficult because you don't get teleported next to your target for that really easy follow-up hit. Now, on top of this, we saw a very similar thing with fists and just punching enemy players. Unfortunately, I don't have any method of determining the exact range here because you can't use a rangefinder optic with fists, and you can only get fists in gunfight, and you can't ping characters in gunfight. But as far as I can tell, we saw a very similar decrease to our melee range here. It's only about 10 centimeters or so, like it's basically nothing. But just like with the gun butt, we no longer teleport toward our target on a melee hit here, and that's going to make follow-up hits quite a bit more difficult. I'd say this is going to affect Warzone much more than anything else though. Next up, let's talk about the perk change here, and this was with Bomb Squad. Apparently, after this update, we will have a proper damage clamp when using Bomb Squad, which means it should now be working the way that it was supposed to work from the beginning and the way that it's always worked in custom games where I've done all my testing. So this is something I will have to confirm with actual playtime in a public match, since this always worked properly in custom games to begin with. We should no longer be dying to a proximity mine, for instance, if we're using Bomb Squad and we haven't taken damage from any other source. Similarly, if an RPG or something hits right next to your foot without hitting you directly, you should also be able to survive that now with Bomb Squad, just like we've been able to in custom games from the beginning. And assuming this has gone through properly, this is great news in my opinion. If you're using Bomb Squad, you should be able to survive any single explosive, assuming you haven't taken any damage from another source. As for the next fix, this is one that I'm really happy to see. This one involves the Survivor perk. Pre-patch, if you killed a Survivor player, whether you downed them or killed them while they were already down, it would never contribute toward any sort of camo challenges like headshots or long shots. Whereas now, post-patch, I have confirmed this is working properly. However, it does apply to what you do when the player is downed, rather than what you do in order to down the player. So if you down the player with a headshot, but then finish them off with a body shot, you're not going to get a headshot. But if you finish them with a headshot, regardless of how you downed them in the first place, you will be awarded a headshot or long shot or whatever particular challenge you're working on. And this is great news. I think that was my biggest frustration with Survivor, is the fact that it wouldn't contribute toward like camo challenges, for instance. I'm glad that one has been fixed. I should also mention though, they didn't change who gets awarded the kill though when it comes to this. If you down a player that's using Survivor and one of your teammates kills them, you still get nothing. You get no score for that. You don't get awarded the kill. He gets the kill, even if he dealt no damage to him while he was up. So personally, I still feel like the kill should be awarded to the person that downed their Survivor player. But that part is just my opinion. At least they fixed the challenge aspect of Survivor. I think that was the biggest problem that I had with it. But now let's move on to a few other things outside of gameplay I wanted to point out. The first thing is we now have cosmetics for equipment in the game. And as of right now, as far as I can tell, this only applies to the frag grenade. We have the Wumpa frag grenade now. I'm sure this will get expanded in the future to other equipment, but that's just one quick little thing I wanted to point out here. Additionally, they slightly adjusted the UI for the perk package menu. Pre-patch, all of our perk packages were on the same screen and you just had to scroll all the way to the left or to the right. Whereas post-patch, they've now just created two tabs where you have your custom perk packages and then your preset perk packages, and you can tab between those. To me, this is a very slight improvement, but it's kind of useless to begin with. I still prefer vertical menus. And also, most importantly here, we are still locked at having only 5 custom perk packages, even though we have 10 or more if you play PlayStation custom loadout slots available. So you are still limited in that way, and I don't know why they insist on keeping this limit in place. And then finally, for the important things I want to cover in this video, keeping in mind there were a bunch of other miscellaneous bug fixes and adjustments to things that may interest some people, but I tried to just focus on the ones that are going to have a meaningful impact on the game and how you experience the game. The last thing I want to mention here are a bunch of additions to the Quickplay filters, which should then mean that these are now permanent fixtures in the game and not just featured modes like they have been. And this includes Bounty, Infected, Drop Zone, Gun Game, Grind, 10v10 Mosh Pit, and Third Person Mosh Pit. For many of these, I think this should have been done months ago, especially things like Infected, Gun Game, and 10v10 Mosh Pit. To me, these should have been permanent modes a very long time ago. I personally would have played a lot more of Infected or Gun Game if I could actually choose, but all we've had access to in order to play those modes is a Mosh Pit where you may end up having to play a different party game mode that you don't want to play. So I like that we can now select those individually. And then, of course, 10v10 Mosh Pit is some of the most fun I've had in this entire game. And I just hate the fact that it's been a featured mode kind of on and off over the past couple months. And then, like, the last time we got it, it only had one map available, which was Dome. And as much as I love 10v10, I also like variety in my experience. I don't like playing the same map over and over again. So it's nice to see that it's finally just here as a permanent mode, and I'm sure many people are going to feel the same way about third-person mosh pit as well, since that is a mode that was advertised with the game, and yet for the past few months, it's only been available to play every now and then with a featured mode. So there we go, that is going to wrap it up for the Season 4 updates. Overall, I would say there are a bunch of small steps in the right direction here. I was slightly disappointed to not see more weapon balancing, but at the end of the day, I do think weapon balance is overall in a pretty good state for multiplayer, so I guess it makes sense we're not seeing a huge list of weapon balancing changes. Also, I think a lot of people were hoping for like movement changes, for instance, and unfortunately, there were 0 changes to movement with this update. But again, like I said, these are a bunch of small steps in the right direction, and I feel like we're finally starting to get this game into the place that I feel like it should have been a long time ago. Now, of course, these are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear what you guys think of the Season 4 update in those comments down below. Do you generally like the changes we're seeing here, or are there any changes that you don't like with this patch? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.